Good evening. Today, I would be speaking about sexual harassment at workplace. I'm sure you would be aware of this topic because recently it's been in the news. A lot of people have been accused of sexual harassment at workplace. The recent case was of a YouTube channel called TVF. And we all have our own perceptions of what sexual harassment at workplace is. So I would actually like to begin with the conversation of what actually is sexual harassment at workplace. In fact, instead of reading out a generic version which is mentioned under the Act, as you know, the government has taken out an Act, Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act, which was launched in 2013, which is one step ahead from Vishaka Guidelines, which was enacted in 1998, which is meant to provide protection to employees in the workspace. So the Act itself has a definition, but let's do a little experiment just to understand how much we already know about sexual harassment at workplace. It is often said that sexual harassment is about when somebody is touching you or somebody is groping you. Our first thought when we hear sexual harassment at workplace is of usually a creepy old boss forcing himself on a young, beautiful, helpless secretary. That's the usual thought that we have. Let's do a small experiment, please. Can I request you all to stand up, please? Just for a very short time. Thank you so much. This is just a small experiment. So, all those who have experienced various forms of sexual harassment themselves, or who know at least one person in their life who has faced sexual harassment themselves, can remain standing. The rest may sit down. Sexual harassment like unnecessary staring, touching you, or trying to force themselves on you, making jokes about you, insults. Well, that's quite a few actually. One observance that I have is many people are very hesitant to talk about it. And I would love to actually talk to you all later on to know about your experiences and see if I can help in any way. Thank you so much. Thank you. One thing that is understood is that people are not talking about it enough. Despite of what we think that people are talking about it a lot in the media, the reality is that people are actually not talking about it, despite this being all around us. My NGO, we conducted a small survey last 2016, in the last quarter, and we found out that 32% people, the respondents, said that they know someone in their own organization who has faced sexual harassment at workplace, and 58% respondents said that they know of someone in another workplace, which is just, with a small sample size, it's just a mere indicator of how many people we actually know. Some basic pointers to understand sexual harassment at workplace, which is these pointers are taken from the Act itself, the Act given by the government. It is unwelcome in nature, it is sexual in nature, it is subjective to the experience. Very often it is, a lot of people get away by saying that, oh, I didn't mean it in that way, or only you are overreacting. And that is the important aspect of sexual harassment at workplace, that your intent does not matter. What matters is the impact. You may feel very comfortable wearing a shirt which the buttons are open, or wearing a loose pant, so when you sit, your backside can be seen. So that is no impact according to you. But what if other women around you are uncomfortable with that kind of atmosphere? You may curse all the time in the office, but it makes another person uncomfortable. So it's the impact that matters, and it's subjective in nature. And more often than not, it happens in the context of power. There is always a power hierarchy. We need to also understand what is unwelcome. how do you feel when someone is forcing you to do something that you do not want to do? We all have faced some or the other situation where we are forced to do something, but we really don't want to do that. We are also good at actually identifying when someone else is being uncomfortable. And the most important thing that we can understand as human beings, not even as employees rather, is mutual respect for each other. And if we have that, we would not be, this unwelcome behavior, this aspect needs to go away soon enough from the workspace so that we all are comfortable enough to even say no. Very often it's assumed that we won't be able to talk at all. Oh, now the sexual harassment is there. Now even talking to women has become a crime. I often hear this thing that after this act, our lives have become miserable. We don't know, if we'll talk to women, it will be taken as sexual harassment at workplace. We have to be very careful. People say these things, and I always tell them that it's a matter of where you draw the line. These brilliant posters from the Australian Human Rights Commission make it very clear. There is a difference in your behavior. You need to draw a line. There is a huge difference between greet and grope. There is a huge difference between looking and leering. When you look at someone and when you talk to that person, especially in a workplace, you look at their face. Very often, and this is something that women over here know well too often and very well, that when we talk, men usually don't look at our faces, they look at our breasts. And it's so obvious and so funny at the same time that you almost feel like just going down a little bit, be like, sir, my face is over here. So that you stop staring at our breast and look at our face instead. So there is a huge difference, and it's all about drawing the line. How are you today? As simple a question. Whether it's texting. Once we know the line, it is very easy to understand where our behavior goes wrong. And the government has taken out a brilliant act, as I said, in 2013, and the act makes it mandatory on the employers. It actually puts the onus on employers. And I would just like to read out quickly some of the responsibilities that are there in the act. The most important responsibility that has been put up is for the employer to ensure that the workspaces are free of harassment. It sounds a simple term, but in a legal sense, this is the most important statement that is there in the Act. They have to create a policy, communicate it. They have to prohibit sexual harassment at workplace within their premises. They have to create awareness on the issue. They also have to constitute a complaints mechanism where it's headed by a senior woman. It's a place where women employees and any employee rather, not just women employee, who are facing sexual harassment at workplace, they can come there and give in their complaints and be assured that the complaints will be heard. They have to also train the committee members because it's a huge deal knowing all these complaints and how to deal with it. They have to also prepare annual reports and submit to the government, which includes details like how many cases were filed in a year, what happened to those cases, etc. Some of the features of this act itself are very interesting. One is that the internal complaints committee, that is a complaints mechanism, is mandatory for every office that has more than 10 employees. Every office that has more than 10 employees should have a committee. It's legally binding. It doesn't matter if you just have one female employee or you don't have any female employees or you are a small company with just 11 employees. No, you have to have a committee. Documentation is required for all processes, and documentation is also to be shared with the people who say file the complaint or the person against whom the complaint has been made. There is supposed to be confidentiality for both the people, the respondent and the complainant. There has to be protection against retaliation, because one of the biggest worry is that if I complain, this will affect my job. The Act has laid out clear guidelines on how to avoid that. There are penalties for the employer too. So if you don't constitute a committee, or if you don't act on complaints received, or if you do not act upon the recommendations which are given by the complaints committee, then there is a penalty of 50,000 rupees. And at the same time, repeat offenses can also lead to cancellation of license. The complaints committee has, in a way, the powers of a civil court within that workspace. And they can recommend action which can straight away start from a simple apology letter till termination of employment. It can range within it, like say dismissal or a warning which will be put into your employee file. There are different ranges of action that can be taken. We all believe that beyond Vishaka guidelines, this act has really been good for us, especially in terms of protecting our workspaces. We live in a neoliberal society where our worth is decided by what we do and how big we can make ourselves, despite of all the social inequalities. And sexual harassment at workplace undermines all of this. It makes you into a dehuman object within the workspace. We come to a workspace to work and not to have men look at us or leer at us or comment on how good we are looking today or sing songs by when we pass from the desk. This law is there, but how is it that we are still failing? What is it that is actually stopping us from reaching a place where workspaces are still safe for women? Among the survey that we had done, another interesting result that we found out was when we asked women, why didn't you file a complaint despite all the harassment that you faced in your workspace? The highest reason was 32%. I was worried that I would be blamed for it or told that I asked for it. Another 32%, I did not know whom to approach. And that's a genuine concern. They really don't know who the committee members are. So obviously, it's not something as simple as create a committee and let it be. The employees also have to know who the committee members are. I thought they would never believe me or take me seriously. That's also one of the highest reasons marked within the survey that we took. That itself shows a lot of progress that needs to be done in order to make our workspaces safe for women. But beyond the law, we also need to understand that this is something that I honestly believe in, that nobody is black or white. People are always shades of gray. We all have different parts of us which can be misinterpreted, misunderstood, and it's all about the context. If you all know the book and the movie 50 Shades of Grey, if this was about a poor black man, then it would have been a crime thriller story. But instead, this is about a rich white person, so it's a romantic novel. So it's all about context. We also have to realize what context we are in. I want to talk about quickly just a few cases that we have seen recently. One of the cases that came in with a big drama, I would rather say, was the Energy Resources Institute, R.K. Pachauri. For those who might not know about this case, R.K. Pachauri is a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He used to chair the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And he is a very renowned person and a very celebrated figure. And a lot of people look up to him, or used to look up to him. He is accused of harassing at least 3 women who have come ahead and filed an official complaint. And he used to forcibly hug them, make them sit on their lap, and just basically abuse his position as a senior most leader in his office and in this industry. I managed to access the text messages that he had sent to the victim. There are over 6,000 of them. Some of the choicest ones I would like to share. He sent this text message: "Here I am sitting and chairing an IPCC meeting and sending you messages. I hope that tells you of my feelings for you." When I come to work, I don't want to receive a message like this. All I want to know is if my software is working or not. The message that will make me happy is if a vendor is telling me, "Madam, 5% discount on your next order," and I'll be like, yes, I've saved some budget for the organization. Another interesting message, and just to prove to you how much I love you, I shall go on a fast after the cricket match tomorrow. I will break the fast only when you believe I love you with sincerity and unfathomable depth. if this was not a real sexual harassment case, then it would have been some creepy romantic novel. But actually it is still creepy and not at all romantic. These are just some of the messages that women had to deal with. And one of the biggest failures in this particular case was how the organization refused to separate the victim and the respondent, the complainant and the respondent, despite clear provisions in the Act. The Act makes it very clear that the moment you get a complaint and there is enough evidence to believe that the complaint is true, there can be interim measures, which one of it is that the respondent and the complainant can work in separate offices. Or either you move the respondent away or the complainant away to another location, or you change the line managers, you change the project that they are working on, or at the most you can also give them up to 3 months of leave. So there are provisions, but these were not kept in mind. R.K. Pachauri was freely walking in the office despite he given the order to be on a leave. They chose him as the vice president of the committee despite the entire case, which is very demeaning, not just to that one victim who had given a complaint, but to all the others and the entire process of the committee created by the Supreme Court and the Government of India. These are the powers of the committee. You can get a transfer, 3 months leave, and they also give you a recommendation and the determination for compensation in case if there's harm determined, like mental harm or physical harm, emotional trauma. Another case is of Tarun Tejpal, Tehelka. I remember when this came in the news, I was like, oh my God, Tarun Tejpal, how could this happen? For us, Tarun Tejpal was like this awesome person. Despite being a media man, he was a socially inclined person. He did a lot of sting journalism and like free media. It was really shocking to know that someone like him could be involved in a sexual harassment case. But that is what is so surprising, or not so surprising, about sexual harassment, that you don't have to look like a villain to actually be a harasser. You can look like your everyday Tarun Tejpal and R.K. Pachauri, who are intelligent people, who have won prizes, who are doing amazing work, who are doing really good work, and still be a harasser, still be a sexual harasser. Tarun Tejpal is accused of forcing himself on the victim in a lift, trying to push his hands up in her skirt, and also send her text messages. So there is a huge case that is going on. Again, he has said that I deny all these allegations, everything. Some of the later on, when the victim and Tarun Tejpal were together, since the event was still going on, the Think Fest in Goa, he said, well, this is the easiest way for you to keep your job. And despite all the measures given in the Act, which says that there will be protection against retaliation, the ground reality is very, very different. Another case I would like to share of is Greenpeace India. That was my workplace. I used to work there. I worked there for around 5 years, and I faced sexual harassment at workplace myself over there. The man that I gave a complaint against, he was a serial harasser. I was the third person to go on an official complaint, a written complaint against him. And the first woman that he harassed, he was drunk. He was in the guest house, and he took that lady's name and said that, I'm very, I'm so sorry that I'm married. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done. You are so beautiful. This is what he said. And that's not something that you say to another person in a workplace or even in a guest house. To another lady, a middle-aged lady, he started spreading rumors. And to me, we were on another work trip, and he asked me to vacate my room, the hotel room that where we were staying, at 10:30 in the night, and he asked me to shift to his room because no other rooms were empty. So, and not just that, I think he was even following me. He wanted to sit right next to me when we were having breakfast. He was following me all around. My two other male employees, they had to physically put themselves between me and him because he was getting too close for comfort. It was just like a very messy behavior. I complained because I thought I was an activist and I should be doing the right thing. If not, at least I should be the one doing the right thing. I should complain. So I did complain, and 2.5 years later, I was told that action was taken. That is what I was told. But 2.5 years later, a whistleblower sent me an email, and that email said, these are not sexual harassment cases as defined by the policy, and there is really no grounds to conduct a detailed proceedings by the complaints committee. So the HR, this was an interaction between the then HR and the then executive director of Greenpeace, and this is what they determined all by themselves, without even talking to me once, without even talking to the respondent, the man against whom I had put in a complaint. And they knew about all the victims of this man. They knew about his behavior, but yet they did not do anything. This entire effort to cover up and actually not act can really crumble the foundations of any workplace right now, because as we can see with the cases around us, people tell me that these days there is a rise of sexual harassment at workplace cases, and I genuinely feel that no, there is no rise in the number of cases. It's just that women have started to speak up. Women have started to say that I will not take your shit anymore. I'm going to speak up. And that is what is happening. More and more women are coming out. And recently we were all made aware of another case of TBF, the viral fever. It's a very famous YouTube channel. They make comedy movies and short videos. Arunabh Kumar, he has been harassing a lot of women in the workplace, and as is the case with the previous ones, there are multiple women, all of them coming out with an account of how they have been harassed. But of course nobody is willing to believe them, because all they want is proof. And as we know too well, with Bill Cosby itself, we had to wait for 50 proofs before he finally admitted that yes, he had raped all of them, all of the 50 women, 50 plus women, before the media finally realized that yes, he is not a good person. So the same thing is happening still over here. And one interesting quote of Arunabh Kumar I would like to share. He says, I am a heterosexual single man, and when I find a woman sexy, I tell her she is sexy. I compliment women. Is that wrong? This seems like a very genuine question. One Bollywood celebrity, Twinkle Khanna, she has rightly said that unless she's a stripper and you are her pimp, sexy is not a compliment at a workplace. You cannot call someone sexy at the workplace unless you are her pimp and she's a stripper. So again, it's all the matter of context. Of course, if you're in a workplace, yes. There are other ways to compliment employees. I don't know why he thought sexy is the only way to compliment a woman, because unless he meant that a woman's only worth is her beauty and not the capabilities and skills she brings onto the workplace, maybe that's what he meant. One more case that came to us internationally was Uber. Uber, we all know the taxi app that we have. And Uber's case is actually quite similar to Greenpeace's case in terms of the systematic way through which there was a systematic attempt to cover up the entire thing, to deny. There was a blatant denial in the face of overwhelming evidence. The man who has not been named by the woman who wrote the blog, the way through which we came to know of the story, she decided to complain against that person. This is from her quote. My new manager sent me a string of messages over a company chat. He was in an open relationship, he said, and his girlfriend was having an easy time finding new partners, but he wasn't. He was looking for women to have sex with. We have to keep in mind this was over the company chat. And the woman chose to complain, and she went to the HR, and the HR said that this is the first complaint that we are getting against him, and he's a very high performer. So it would not be wise to take up a case against him. The training that is made mandatory for committee members is for the pure reason that they know what their roles are. Same in the case of Greenpeace, where the HR officer, she decided to ascertain the facts of the case and be the judge herself by saying that this is not a case of sexual harassment at workplace. The same way the HR in Uber decided to say that, oh, it's just his first case and he's a high performer. In fact, she actually, the lady who wrote the blog for Uber, she got in touch with other women, and all the other women who chose to complain against the same man had the same response from the HR. Oh, this is the first time someone's complaining about him. Another woman went, oh, this is the first time someone's complaining about him. So, I don't know, I mean, probably they should have kept a record of all the first times someone came against him and not increase the number, but that was just a clear case of the HR taking decisions all by herself when all these things should have directly gone to a committee. Unless the HR officer itself is in the committee, the HR officer should not have any role in handling these complaints. At the most, if the complaints come through, they should go straight to the committee. When people approach me and say that they are experiencing harassment at the workplace, what should I do? Should I go and talk to the HR? My first response is leave the HR. Don't go to the HR at all. Straight away head to the committee. But again in Uber, there was a systematic failure. There was an effort to downplay the entire thing by saying, oh, it was your work performance and not really these issues. That was the same accusation given to me as well, that you are taking revenge from Greenpeace because you are... I was told that I'm taking revenge because I'm upset over how I was fired because I was a poor performer. One is I resigned, I was not fired, and I don't remember being a poor performer at all. But there were more ridiculous things told to me during Greenpeace's incident. One of it was also that I had taken, apparently, money from the Modi government so that I can bring down the organization. They made some political connections at the same time. So everything under the sun that was possible to discredit my complaint was done. Not just in Greenpeace, but this has been happening everywhere else. Your character is questioned, your character and your business along with the harasser is questioned, your work performance is questioned, the way you dress is questioned. Why didn't you say something about it before? Even your failure to complain prior to this is also questioned, which is surprising because if you had a good work culture where I could feel comfortable to walk up the very day something like this happens, then you would not be here asking me this question, why didn't I complain earlier? But at the same time, despite all these things, we also have this worry that this law might be misused. What about the cases of women who are upset that they have been given bad performance reviews and they chose to file sexual harassment claims against their bosses? Yes, as is the case with every law, sexual harassment at workplace laws can also be misused. But one thing to understand about false cases is lack of evidence does not make a case false. If I give you a pen and you don't give the pen back to me, and I accuse you of being a thief for a pen, I know, but if I accuse you of being a thief, but if I can't prove it, that doesn't mean my claim of you stealing my pen is wrong. It just means that I cannot prove it that you have taken my pen. A false complaint can only be a false complaint if at the time of giving the complaint, it is absolutely clear to the complainant, that is, that this is a false case. Only then it is counted as a false case. it cannot be a false case if the committee has been unable to prove the reality, or the complainant cannot prove how, if the harassment has actually happened or not. That doesn't make it a false case. We have something called principles of natural justice. That's the legal term. The most obvious thing is both parties should be given a right to hearing. Something that did not happen in Greenpeace case is that I wasn't called in for a hearing. The man wasn't called in for a hearing. So if I accuse someone of sexual harassment at workplace, that doesn't mean that this person will be labeled as a harasser and taken away from the office and its employee file will be stamped terminated. Obviously, it doesn't happen that way. That person is given a chance to speak their side of the story, and it's weighed against your side of the story. And that has to be done in a very unbiased manner. Once this happens, only then it is we come to a conclusion of whether a case is either true, either false, or there is some sort of intent that is established that, okay, this is a false complaint. So it's very important to remember that lack of evidence does not make it a false complaint. And one thing that I have understood is despite the law, what we have, the provisions, and despite what is happening in the offices, one thing is very obvious, that we need to ensure that the law is being followed, that our offices are compliant with the law. But one thing that we can do when we see something happening, how we can contribute towards this, is by speaking up. It sounds like a very simple thing, but if something is happening in front of you, and if you do not speak up, you're complicit. You are a part of that crime, because your silence is like an echo chamber to the harasser, and all they can hear is how right they are and how they can never be wrong. And by the mere act of speaking up, you're not just helping another person, but you're also helping to establish that behaviors like sexual harassment at workplace has no place in our society, and especially in our offices, in our workspaces. We all are responsible towards creating an environment that is free of sexual harassment at workplace. Before we go on to the end, I would just like to ask a simple question. What do we call a woman who has a lot of sex? What do we call a woman who has a lot of sex? Her name. We call her by her name. Thank you. I would be happy to have some questions.
Hi, ma'am. All the examples which you have given here are of a special nature. But we have millions of women who are working in the unorganized sector. Take a homemaid, take a babysitter, etc., etc.
Yes.
What's your call on that? There are so many such instances happening there, and it's getting unaddressed, no? Mm-hmm. My second question. Now, for every incident, there is one victim and there is the person. So, and whenever there's a news value, there's a media coming in and the media trial happens. I caught the example of an actor whose name is Shiny Ahuja. You know that. His entire career has gone for a toss. Yeah. So such discussions in the media trials, how is it affecting the victim? And if it's an wrongly accused, when it's a wrong accusation, how is it affect the other person? 2, 3. Another question is. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, thank you.
True, this act, my examples including are of the organized sector, but this act also applies to the unorganized sector, especially domestic helpers, our domestic helps. They are also covered under this act. And we need to find out a way through which we can provide a committee for them. Maybe say within a housing society, we can have one committee which serves all the domestic workers within one single housing society. Maybe through that we can address their needs. And there is a huge unorganized sector, and we need to really address their concerns. And I'm actually looking for different organizations who are working on this issue so that I can work along with them. But yes, that's a huge task that needs to be done. But regarding media cases and Shiny Ahuja's case, this is a fact with all crimes. The media becomes a judge and it announces a punishment even without a trial. You have cases where a person's reputation has been tarnished, regardless of the fact whether he's a criminal or not. You have cases where Najib, who is missing from JNU, he has been branded as a ISIS terrorist, which is not true, but Times of India took out that coverage. Media is a completely different angle into this entire case, because if the stories are leaked, you cannot do anything. I chose to take my name and go public with the story of Greenpeace, and I was like, I just had calls 24/7, and despite verbal evidence, despite email evidence, I had reporters misquoting me, and it was very strange to wake up and read the newspaper saying Sonam says this and this. I'm like, I didn't say this. When did this happen? So media accountability is a huge part. I feel reporters should be sensitized towards the case, towards confidentiality, towards unbiased reporting. And that needs to be done big time. If our journalism schools are not doing enough to ensure that our reporters are supposed to be unbiased, then I guess we NGOs will have to take up that task.
I just want to ask that in the case of big corporate companies, there is always a trend that they are always protecting this kind of harassers. So I just want to know that if there is a limit, if this kind of problems just ending up to the 50,000 fine or going after that.
What would you do if you would know that your best friend has been accused of harassing someone? What will be your first response?
I'll definitely speak up and yeah.
Yeah, it's still tricky. It still puts a little bit like, okay, how could that person do that? But at least in the workspace, employees who are senior in the role or in terms of their age in the organization, they are usually given a lot of preference, and the organization is often reluctant to let them go because they are valuable employees. And that is where the power matrix starts. And that is where awareness comes into the picture, because if there is awareness of the act, of the law, or awareness that there is a committee in the workplace that would be taking action, or if some sort of awareness that these things that I can do are sexual harassment at workplace and maybe I should not do them, that awareness itself can be a huge deal, a big game changer in terms of ensuring that senior members are not sidelined or senior members are not favored in the complaints.
In India, in 2013, enacted a new act, that is Criminal Law Amendment Act. As per that act, every type of sexual harassment is as heinous or serious offences. In that context, what type of relevance of ICC and LCC, these type of committees and procedures, recommendation to police, and other types of procedures? What is the relevance of ICC and LCC?
So the ICC is a complaints mechanism, a place where complaints can be given and they can seek redressal. So I personally feel that every case of sexual harassment should be taken with the strictest care, and there should not be any attempts like conciliation. If somebody has groped me or forced himself on me, then why would I even want a conciliation with that person? But the law, one more important fact is also to establish whether it's a false case or not. That itself is a huge pointer in terms of how these cases are viewed in the organization. We cannot have anyone take a judgment whether this person is truly a victim or not, whether the person is truly a perpetrator or not. It has to go through a process which is unbiased. It also has to go through a process where the evidence is collected. Both sides are given an opportunity to present their own case. And then there is a decision that is taken, which also acts as a recommendation not just for the case, but also recommendation for the employers on what they should be doing to ensure that such cases don't occur again. So in that way, the committee in itself is a whole different unit, is a whole vibrant different unit within the workspace. And I personally believe that it's way easier to approach a human in a committee instead of some abstract law in the police station. It's very difficult to reach out to the police station, but within a workspace, it is very easy to reach out to another colleague or another member that you are comfortable with. So, yes, in a way, it's a good thing. I personally feel it's a good thing that we have a committee now, despite so many years of Vishaka guidelines and very recently 2013 Act. But still, it is not enough. I always like to quote this favorite thing that Supreme Court took out this act in 2013, but they themselves constituted their own committee in 2015. So there is a huge work that needs to be done. Even a presence of a committee is just one small step in a huge process. Yeah.
Okay, we have one question from online. Okay.
Yeah.
It's from Arun. He says, whom should a person approach if she is getting zero help from the organization? Police, Women's Commission, or an NGO like yours?
That depends on how comfortable they are to address their case. I would suggest some NGO, because they usually are more empathetic and they are more open towards getting or handling these kind of responses. National Commission of Women or any state commission of women, yes, they are also excellent establishments, but they have very skewed gender notions, which is very strange to see from, the mere fact that it's called Ministry of Women and Child Development itself is that our role as women is still seen as mothers and not as women alone. And I have my own doubts about how a case like this would be handled, but I may be unaware. Police, it is a very difficult aspect. It's very tricky because there are a few cases of police being good, of they helping the victims out through and through, but those are just a minute percentage or maybe point percentage. There are way more examples of how they have not been helpful at all. And it is completely up to the women. They need to weigh their pros and cons. They need to weigh which option will give them a better result. But first and foremost, even without reaching all these places, they should reach out to a friend. Reach out to a friend who trusts you, who you trust, and share your concern. Because you're not alone. And you don't have to bear that burden alone. If no one, no NGO, no commission, or no police, at least have your friends close to you.